So Graham said, I'm only allowed to talk about pre-production. So unlike Carl, I said, I've got 7 things to talk about. He said, no, only 5, and I was obedient, as producers are, and it's 5. Carl said he had 8. So the first thing to think about, and Graham just said, instead of going straight into pre-production, let's talk about the considerations first. So by the time it gets into pre-production, the big thing is to really think about, this is the expensive part. This is the part that the clients spend their money on. So we've presented, we've sold, and now we have to execute. So it is really the tricky part, but it's also the most fun part, in my opinion, anyway, selfishly. Is everyone here in creative? Yeah. Everyone, okay. And I'm assuming you've worked on TV production before? Yep. Okay, cool. So it'll all... No?
Hands up who hasn't worked on TV.
Okay, cool. So it will all sound familiar and to most of you. It's okay. I'm going to just carry on. Okay. So the big thing, allow for enough time and enough money to execute. You can do anything as long as you've got enough money and enough time. But we know in the real world that's not how it works. So here we go. You know, it comes into production and we're all ready to go. And the producers always give you the bad news. We don't have enough time, we don't have enough money. And then we start backpedaling a little bit. But the example that I'm going to show you today is something for Standard Bank. And it was something that everybody invested in. Everyone believed in it hugely. And Marie, please add as we go along. Because I think when you see the end result, you really understand. It took 15 weeks from giving the go-ahead. So not even from the beginning of the process. But I think when you watch it, you'll understand why. The first step, of course, script approval. If something comes into production, everyone needs to have approved that. And not just absolutely everybody. Every stakeholder needs to have bought into the concept. Everyone needs to have approved the script anyway. You see, I'm nervous. I don't like doing this. And then the second bit is choosing the right director. So generally speaking, here in South Africa, we have a pitch process, and the creatives will look through showreels, and it's very, very important to go through the work in detail of the director so that you can select the right director to pitch on the work. Out of 3 directors, generally speaking, we get 3. You choose the preferred director, and you need to obviously motivate and present to the client why you feel that that director is the right person for the job. Of course, when you're briefing and when you're chatting up front, it's super important to understand and to know the tone that you need out of this commercial, because everyone needs to be on the same page. If someone goes out, you brief someone, they come back and the tone is completely wrong, you're not going to be able to sell that treatment to the client. So that's the first thing. And then time. Do you want me to just carry on, Graham? And then we'll wait for the ads and... Okay. Okay. So... Yes, please do. Right from the word go, you know, you're going to be shooting for like 5 days. The production house is big for 2 weeks to present a treatment and to come back with costs. And generally speaking, we do get more time than a week, but you don't, generally speaking, we push for 1 week for them to come back. And the pushback from them is the amount of research that they need to do to come back and present you with a decent treatment, with the costs that, you know, are obviously relevant to the treatment. They ask for 2 weeks because a lot of them, before they come back just to pitch on the work, they've already gone out and done a little bit of research on the type of people they'd like to cast. Some go out and try and find the locations they'd like to shoot at. So that's why they're big agencies for 2 weeks for treatment. But we all know, generally speaking, we don't have the luxury of 2 weeks for treatment and costs. So yeah, on this particular ad that I'm going to show you, which I'm sure you're familiar with, our timings, I remember Marie asking me one day, what is taking you so long to get back to us on these stock images? The stock images for that particular commercial involved famous people. So it was getting the permission to get famous people in the ad, and then obviously the rights for the footage. And we were very ambitious when we started. We had Madiba on the list, and then we had Archbishop Tutu, and eventually who did we land up with? I can't even remember, Marie. I have to show, but it takes you 2 weeks to even get through to the offices, 1 more week to beg for permission. We started off hoping for a Beatles track so that, you know, eventually we were applying and telling the music production companies, we just want to be honest, we don't have the time, so we're asking for permission for 2 tracks alongside each other. Beatles bombed out as it generally does. So you'll see eventually which track we landed up with. So that's why the pre-production process is so important, and that's why you need to invest the time, because when you're looking for stock images, famous people, you need all the permissions. When you're applying for rights for a piece of music, you need all the permission. And, you know, so it goes on, and obviously there's a ripple effect. For this ad as well, and then we get into pre-production meetings. So if you have 1 week, do you even have time for a pre-production meeting with the client, or do you just go straight into it?
Once the sign up for cost, once
you go straight in?
so there's no discussion.
Wow.
After we're done with the ad, that's when we want to come and make changes.
At the edit stage?
Yeah, like,
There's some
I like
kind of,
this,
there's some
maybe
kind of
cut this out.
organization.
But if you're given 2 weeks to pre-prod and shoot, it will compromise on the quality without a doubt.
Yeah, it does. Like,
Especially if you're looking for a lead artist who needs to deliver, you know, some kind of performance. What if he needs to deliver performance with dialogue? Then I suppose you do compromise.
You get a person that has a people.
Okay, yeah.
I don't like this person, replace with this person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We do the same. So, but by the time you get, so then when you decide, okay, this is the director, and you present to the client, you get into the pre-production stage, and generally, if you can, it's at least 2 weeks before you shoot. On something like this ad that you'll see, there was a hell of a lot more than 2 weeks, because we were getting rejected by famous people. We were having music tracks bombed. It was just one of those things, and we had to go along. It had a lot of planning because the footage, the other complication was that the footage that we bought, so we had stock images, moving footage, we had to insert people into those scenes. So we had to then buy the footage, get the permission and the agreement, and then cast the person that would fit into that scene. And then obviously the shoot. It was 4 days of a green screen shoot, and then 1 day of going out on locations and shooting the actual scenes to recreate the big ones. So the green screen stuff was super important. So at the pre-production meeting, when you're working on a commercial that has a lot of special effects, if you can, and if the timing allows, you allow for a previs, which is short for pre-visualization. And basically it's a grayscale animatic, but it plans your shots. It literally plans your camera angle, plans all of that. So by the time you get to shoot, that's all sorted. So I know you're doing that up front, but yeah, so at the pre-prod, I think we're all on the same page. We need the casting approved, the location approved, wardrobe, set design. I mean, how many times have you sat in an edit and somebody didn't like the yellow shirt that the cast was in? And what can you do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. It's too late. So it is very, very important to have all the decision makers in the pre-prod meetings, you know, and that's why timing helps you, because if you've got enough time to get into everybody's diaries, then it's going to work in everyone's favor. But we know it's the real world. It doesn't always work like that. So, yeah, so basically that is, we know what we discuss in pre-production meetings. You've all been there. So location, casting, wardrobe, the storyboards, pardon? Exactly, all of that. If you can, also the storyboard, obviously that gets ticked off. It can even be done before you even get into your pre-production meeting. The big thing to get signed off before you shoot is your shot list. Do you have time to do that? It sounds rather luxurious in South Africa all of a sudden, and we moan about it. Let's quick look. And you'll see that every single shot of this ad had to be planned to that level of detail, from the placement of the person that we were going to shoot against green screen, the backgrounds, the recreating of every scene. So you will see, yeah, I've never worked on a production like this, Marie.
This is probably the most complex and the most expensive production that we've ever worked on.
And it's just because it had everything, you know, famous piece of music, famous people, stock shots, you know, recreating old scenes. So recreating a huge soccer scene, recreating a voting scene, recreating election scenes. So yeah, it's a good example because it's had absolutely everything in it. The post-production also took long on this one. I'm not allowed to talk about post-production, right? That's point number 6.
You know what,
So yeah, it is a very good example to go through, and I think when you probably are familiar with the ad, but I'm going to I think first I'd like to play the making of. Where's Graham? Oh, this is the making of.
Not this one.
No, it's this one. Me and Max, you know,
Yeah.
making
So
of.
you can just go, there you go, and
Okay.
just press, so just enter a thing.
So the big idea we came up with was, doesn't it feel good to move forward? It comes from a very simple place, and that's every single person's moving forward is different. And that's exactly what we want this ad to convey. We want people to feel that.
Roll video, playback, and action guys! Shift forward in the queue!
If I could take you up in paradise up above, if you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello.
Everybody has those iconic scenes that you remember from the elections, you know, the helicopter shots where those snaking queues of people. So, you know, in the entire shooting process, we're very closely matching those scenes. So even while we're shooting, you know, we're looking at those scenes and trying to match them as closely as possible to try and get that authenticity.
The process we're going through with all the green screens is to shoot elements that we're going to put into the stock shots, the archival stuff. So the process would be to first paint out the guy that is in the archive shot and replace him with a new guy. Most of it's very old, so the biggest trick is going to be taking the stuff we've shot now on sort of high definition cameras and degrading it enough and adding enough grain and softness, contrast, all those kind of things to integrate them seamlessly into the archival stuff.
Life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above.
Shaboom,
If you will tell me I'm the only one that you
I think that song is playing in my mind each and every single minute of the day.
We did a lot of research last year, specifically around the payoff line, which is moving forward. Moving forward to me is different to moving forward to you and the next person and so on.
We started thinking about this brand positioning towards the end of 2011 already. Throughout that process, what we've done is we've had to interrogate each and every idea, we've had to interrogate each and every statement that we're making, every piece of footage that we're buying, and we've really had to look at it from all the different angles. So it's an incredibly lengthy process, but it's certainly worth all the time and effort that's been put in.
Standard Bank is not just a South African bank, we're an African bank. So we needed scenes that resonate with people in South Africa and the rest of Africa.
I think the important thing is it's not just about the world moving forward, it's about the feeling that everybody collectively has when the world moves forward.
There's so many elements that come into play. There's getting the sound right, because the song's a critical part of the ad. Then there's the edit, getting that timing right, and then now we're putting people into these old scenes, which is quite a challenge. So fortunately we've got a great director and a great production team on it.
The whole process is happening real time, which helps us with the positioning of the figures and the props and everything else.
So I'm working quite closely with Marco, the VT guy. He'll record one of the takes, sometimes even just a rehearsal. We'll just do a really rough key, drop it into the existing footage.
We are now going to be playing back a slow version to try and recreate the authentic movements of older films from the 30s and 40s. So we play back the music a little slower and then it gets sped up in post-production. Yeah, so it's different to most live recording situations.
We had to go back in history from the 1900s up to now. This time we actually had a chance to do pretty stuff, like girly stuff that we like to do, like hats and gloves and fix shoes and make different coats.
Probably the biggest shot of the production. We're on Long Street. In front of you, you've got about 750 extras. We're shooting our Con soccer scene. As you can see, a lot went into this production. We have a whole bunch of props, beautiful people, very excited. It's pretty cold, but I just think it's going to be an awesome shot.
you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom and hoping we'll meet again. Life could be a dream. If only all my precious plans would come true.
If you would let me spend my whole life loving you.
Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Life could be a dream. If I could take you out in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, hello, we meet again. Shaboom, shaboom.
Shaboom, shaboom. Shaboom, shaboom. Shaboom, shaboom.
So 15 weeks, I think that one was. 15, yeah.
As well as to the point that the guys talked about with radio and print earlier, is this applies across the board. You know, when you look at the piece of work that you've got, and think who's going to be the best group of experts to bring this to life. And I know that in a lot of our markets, that's a difficult thing to consider because there's not a lot of great production expertise and a lot of different production company options. But even to the consideration of who's the best voice, you know, is there an illustrator that can do something? Is there a sound effects guy that we can use? Can we tap into to the network for more of that expertise? I think that's really quite important.
Time, we've gone through that already. So yeah, the pre-production on this, you can imagine, it wasn't 2 weeks, it was a hell of a lot longer. And then the shot list, so when you look through the booklets, you'll see that even the placement of the people, obviously it had to be planned because the footage was existing. So the shot, you know, you choose the shot and then choose where the person needed to be, you know, everyone who was singing in the scene, and then slot them in post. So yeah, pretty much the whole thing about if you can get a shot list approved before you shoot, it eliminates discussion on set because obviously the shot list is dependent on the time that you have. So your location recce before the shoot will determine your shooting schedule as well, and the shot list will determine every angle, and it's all planned. So when you get on set, you know, there's no time to negotiate or to chat about options. Yes, maybe 1 or 2 different options, but anything more than that, you're going to land up in hours of overtime and additional costs, which the agency would have to carry, you know what I mean? If you can't blame the client for not doing enough research up front. So we would obviously get nailed with additional costs if we hadn't prepped properly. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yep. Do you have any questions? Is what it is.
How long did it take to get all those people to learn the song? Like, you know?
Luckily, I mean, it was just little bits, Justin's, yeah, just some little bits of the song. And because it was so planned, we knew per scene what we'd be singing. So they only had to learn that little bit of the song. They didn't have to learn the whole song because we had the shots pre-planned. So it wasn't that difficult, actually.
Is it possible for you to break down how much you pay the models, the extras, and the actual main actors?
When we do
something like this, just briefly.
Sure. I don't remember anymore. I think the shooting part of it, just for the production house cost, so the 5-day shoot, I think was in the region of 4 million. I think so. But the cost, I don't remember, because the usages, remember you pay per country as well. I'd have to look at it, I actually don't remember. The music depends on the territory, depends on the medium, so you pay per medium, per territory for the music, voice as well. And then for the artists, you pay a daily rate, and then usages are standard. So South Africa has a standard rate for every artist, and the usages are standard. So TV is like 200% of the daily fee, online is 150, and so you break it down like that. It's a formula.
Super, thanks, Sandra.
Thank you.